Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahamsa. Bhagavad-gita Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Bhagavad-gita Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 12th day of December 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 3, titled Karma Yoga, text 41. near the top of page 177. Tasmat tvam indriyani ado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam pajahi hi enam jnana vijnana nashanam tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam pajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha. Okay, Prabhu? Yeah, just pull it over a little bit. That's good. Papmanam pajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Page 177. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam pajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Go ahead. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Go ahead. Prabhu. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Tasmat tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papmanam prajahiyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Not yet, Abby? Okay. Anyone else here? Anyone online?
Tasmat tvam indriyanyado
Tasmat tvam indriyanyado
niyamya bharatarshabha
niyamya bharatarshabha
papmanam prajahiyenam
papmanam prajahiyenam
jnana vijnana nashanam.
jnana vijnana nashanam. Thank you. Tasmat, therefore, tvam, you, indriyani, senses, ado, in the beginning, niyamya, by regulating, bharata rishabha, O chief amongst the descendants of Bharata, papmanam, the great symbol of sin, prajahi, curb, he, certainly, enam, this, jnana, of knowledge, vijnana, and scientific knowledge of the pure soul, nashanam, the destroyer. Translation. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Purport. The Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning, so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Excuse me. Yeah. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31. Jnanam padamaguhyam me yadvigyana samanvitam sadahasyam tadangam cha grahana gaditam maya. The knowledge of the self and Supreme Self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord Himself. Close quote. The Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So from the very beginning of life, one has to learn this Kṛṣṇa consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Kṛṣṇa conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. This is a key sentence I'm going to read again. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Kṛṣṇa consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nonetheless, Kṛṣṇa consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So from any stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Hare Krishna. So, I quoted this verse last night, and it's even more pertinent tonight. This is a verse that was spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami in his instructions. And he's making the point that this love of God, this prema, which is after all the goal that we're seeking, which includes liberation. What's interesting is that the idea or the goal of liberation is in our conditioned state more attractive, because that includes an end to death, old age, disease, and rebirth, which is desirable to everyone. No one wants to get old. No one wants to die, right? That's for sure. And we understand, and step A of the ABCs of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, that nobody dies, that you get reborn again, and you have to go through it again and again and again and again. So just by, it would be attractive to end that cycle. Of course, it's attractive to end that cycle, and at the same time remain a conscious living being. That's the paradox. The mystery is to everyone that we're not the body. Everyone is identifying with the body, and we say you're not the body. They say, well, what am I? You're the spirit soul. So that's the original impetus. That can be the original impetus for practicing spiritual life in general, to get liberation. And that's why every time there's a Magh Mela or a Kumbh Mela, millions and millions of people gather in Allahabad, where Prabhupada lived for 13 years. And he saw probably 2 of those. And I never went there, but I've seen accounts. I remember reading the National Geographic once did a special on the Kumbh Mela, believe it or not. And on the front cover, they had a picture of a young girl, I think, who had tattoos of Ram's name on her face in Sanskrit letters, like we read these little letters. And that was far out. And they describe some other amazing things. But the most amazing thing is that so many millions of people gather. They have to build like overnight, like a city. They have post office, they have electrical wires, everything. Have you ever been to one in India? No. I have never either. But amazingly, Prabhupada took his disciples to 2 of those in the course of his, in 1970, I think there was one, and then late in 77, with Prabhupada's ill health, he took devotees there. Not to get liberation, but to preach. But to chant, do Harinam and to distribute a lot of prasadam and sell books. So the idea is that Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Kardaye Udoy. This is the Bengali. The Bengali verses are usually short like that. So, what does that mean? The eternal perfection, Nitya Siddha, Nitya means eternal, Siddha means perfection, of Krishna Prema, of love of Krishna, is not something artificial that you will gain through some practice. It's inherent in us. It's already there. So we call it, it's not a sadhya. A sadhya, in this, usually sadhana produces sadhya. Now we use the phrase sadhana. It's not sadhana, it's sadhana. And it's a practice. That's getting up early, chanting Hare Krishna, taking a shower, all the things that were recommended in Nectar of Devotion that Prabhupada taught us. That's the sadhana. And the sadhya is prema. You know, but in this context, in this verse, he's saying that it's not a sadhya in the sense of something that is not inherent in you and that you artificially get. Like I want to develop a skill as an artist, and you have to work hard to it, you know. But it's a temporary thing because, you know, when your body dies, you won't be an artist anymore. But the sadhya that we're looking for is the eternal prema that we already have in our heart. But that has been corrupted into lust. The very same strong, you know, sex desire or desire for anything is originally that pure prema, that ardent desire to please Krishna. That is what pure love is, completely free of material desire. It's just defined at the beginning of Nectar Devotion, practically the 10th or 13th verse. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhanavratam anukurena krishnanushilanam bhakta uttama. Now, uttama bhakti is the same thing as prema. So first he says what it isn't. Anya abhilashita shunyam, devoid of all other desires. Anya abhilash, just like we sing every morning, abhilash, I have the strong desire, O Tulsi, please make me your servant, you know, asha is a big thing. So, anya abhilash, the shunyam, being devoid, shunya, of any other desire, categorized under the headings of jnana, karma, and etc. So, jnana means desire for knowledge, means liberation. And karma is this ordinary sense desire. You know, that's in millions of different material desires. And then adi includes desire for mystical perfection, the cities, you know, that type of thing. So not covered or diluted by that. Avritam came up to 2 verses ago. Our original consciousness is covered by that enemy of lust, which is never satisfied and burns like fire. I don't know if you remember that one. Avritam, you know. So all of us are covered. And in the conditioned state, our original consciousness is covered by the modes of nature, by lust, anger, greed, all these things. We don't really know who we are. And we're living a false identity in this body. And then when it ends, we freak out. Or when it's going to end, and we're going to die. So what's going to happen? You know, is it a big abyss? Am I going to stop existing? You know. And so even just the rudiments of Krishna conscious knowledge can be comforting as you go through life. Oh, I'm not going to die. But you need some assets in devotional service in order to come back and continue the process. In other words, when you really understand the science of Krishna consciousness, every day becomes significant, every hour, every minute of your life, because you're determining your future. You're not just living in this life and you go, what is that, YOLO? You only live once, right? Yeah. And then the implication, therefore, let's enjoy as much as possible, as soon as possible. This is exactly the opposite of our philosophy. You know? No, you don't only live once. Therefore, at the beginning, control your senses, and you don't fall victim to to them, and direct them in such a way that they connect you to Krishna, that they connect your consciousness to Krishna. That's the whole point. So, Indriyanyado Niyamya Bhadatarshaba, that one we read. But this. Okay. Therefore, now why therefore? Probably when the verse began with tasmat or therefore, he would say this is the end of an argument, you know. So, remember the previous verse talked about the hierarchy. Indriyani mano buddhi, Indriyani mano buddhi asyarashtara bhushate. No, so he's saying that that your senses, your mind, and in your intelligence can be reservoirs of this lust. This strong desire, like an intellectual desire, you know, a passion can be, you know, to read a certain kind of literature or something, Oh, I've got to go to Italy to see those, the beautiful paintings there. That's and you go there. Certainly the mind, I point out advertising. It tries to plant in the mind a certain desire, so when you have that need again, you'll buy that product. Billions of dollars are spent on that. And of course the senses. When the senses become, transformed, addiction, then that's a very powerful thing, isn't it? That's usually the definition of addiction, that you have a withdrawal symptom of some kind if you don't have it. It's not just that I think I need it, but your senses are crying out and demanding something, It's a serious state. So, this one verse, beautiful verse, I put a poem to it. This is it's still the teachings of Lord Chaitanya into Sanatan. And this verse, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he attributes it to Madhavendra Puri. Prabhupada will quote this verse. Very appropriate here. Kama dinang katina katita palita durni deshas. Tesham jata mayina karuna natrapano prashantihi. Utrijayatan adayotapate sampratam labdha buddhis tvamayata kshadanamamayam mam niyung svatmadasye. I think so. So, what it means is, in how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. That's right out of this section. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So the key is awakening the intelligence. That's why you may have heard of this verse, Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Koi, Lavamata Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. This is another Bengali verse by Lord Chaitanya. So Sadhu Sangha, the association of sadhus, we're doing that right now. We're associating with Prabhupada in the best way by hearing his words and hearing Krishna's words. So he's the original sadhu. So that hearing, now even just a moment of it is so powerful that it can give you all perfection. Now why? Because it can plant in your mind, in your heart, the interest, the curiosity, the desire to learn more about this, to again associate with sadhus, and eventually culminates in practice. I'm starting to chant Hare Krishna, in this age especially, right? And so this is the ladder. Again, you may have recalled in previous classes, we talked about Rupa Goswami's ladder that he gives in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, starting with faith and culminating with love, beginning with Shraddha and culminating with Prema. So it's exactly this. Adhau Shraddha. Beginning is Shraddha. A little bit of faith. Adhau Shraddha Tatak Sadhu Sangha. Then you come into the association of devotees. Now, of course, this was written way back before there was any internet or TV or anything like that. So sadhu sangha literally means coming together with sadhus. But now, in today's age, this technology can be a double sword. I mean, Prabhupada used technology extensively. What would have happened if it didn't have the airplanes? He wouldn't be, going around the world and recording all those lectures, And these books are mostly recorded at the and so many things, It can be used for, like this whole thing that's been set up with the internet, projection. It's a great gift. So, Adha Shraddha Tatak Sadhu Sangha, association, directly or through some media. Bhajana Kriya. The next step is Bhajana Kriya. You get faith. Your faith is deepened in the practice. And naturally, everyone's doing it. They're chanting on the beads and everything. So you've already chanted in the kirtan. All right, let's try the beads. Dr. Jesse, you've got beads. You've got several sets of beads now. And 2 rounds a day, whatever it is, but you're committed. Because you realize this is, and you experience the benefit of it. So the bhajana kriya goes on, and eventually, ideally, it culminates, you get more and more serious, you want to chant more, and you want to get initiated. Because the thing is, we have to realize we're in a battle. Our conditioning is very, very strong, many, many births, and we've got all of these latent desires and karma and all of these things. And we have to, some of it we have to just fight and discard. And others we have to dovetail characteristics. You know, like I grew up, my father taught me how to play musical instruments from childhood. I was very fortunate. He was a musician. He played the guitar, but he's also a drummer. And I'm 5 or 6 years old, and we learned in the recorder. You know, the recorder, the little flute. You know, I have one at home. So I really I'm grateful for that. You know, I was able to read music, and I played all through grade school and high school, and you know, and so. But it's all Maya, you know, unless it's used to glorify Krishna. So when I got into the kirtan and the rhythm, the beat, you know, I was, oh, this is great, you know. I remember I was a bhakta, and I was washing the plates, you know, Lord's plates, and I was trying to chant the verse that I would just memorize, the Gitas, because it all has meter to it, you know. It was very attractive to me, the whole Sanskrit language. So you know, I mean, going back many lifetimes or whatever, but I was able to use some of that training and facility, you know, in Krishna's service. So we all have, you know, some things we can use, and this prayer is recognizing how births we've been spending under the dictation of our desires and fears and the lust, anger, greed, illusion. This has all been running our lives, you know. So that's why he personifies them. Kama, din, kama, etc. There's kama, etc. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, these 6 enemies. But basically we do lust, anger, and greed. Krishna said in the 16th chapter, this was brought up recently, the gates leading to hell. Tripadam natakasedam dwaram nashanam kama, krodha, tata lobas, tasmari tatrayang chajet. Near the end of the chapter of demon, divine and demoniac, he has this little lesson. The Bhagavad Gita is full of these little lessons. So is the Bhagavatam. 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 verses which provide a whole contained lesson. So here he's giving this lesson. I always thought it was very important. So you all have books. We can turn to it. 16. It's very pertinent to our discussion. 16. I'll give you the number in a second. Near the end of the chapter. It's a short chapter. I'm sorry? Oh, good. We have the same pagination. Text 21. 21 to 23. It's a very important little lesson. So the context is, the beginning of the chapter, Krishna gave all of these wonderful saintly qualities, I think 28 of them. This is page 634. And then the 16th chapter, after describing the saintly qualities, 634, he's describing the demonic qualities, beginning with Damba. Dambo, Darpo, Vimanascha. Damba means hypocrisy. Just like we've been reading in the morning, Hiranyakashipu, glorifying Brahma, yeah, as God, you know, and seemingly very, very humble, you know, and then asking for all these benedictions so he can be a more powerful demon and you know, fulfill his lust. So it's all just a game he's playing, you know, to get the benediction. So here, in this text, Krishna described what happens with the demons. They get pushed down further and further, they go to hell. So he says, Trivadam Narakasedam, there are 3 gates leading to this hell. Lust, anger, and greed. Sound familiar? Lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And then he says what happens if you do give them up. These are like gates, they're doors. You're able to avoid them. The man who has escaped these 3 gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization, and thus gradually attains the supreme destination. You see? So, on the other hand, if you can't do that, this is a very important, very often quoted verse. So these last 2 verses talk about the importance of the Shastra, which is nothing but the words of God, and as explained by his great servants. He who discards scriptural injunctions, these 2 verses talk about them, in the last verse, the next verse. Discards scriptural injunctions, acts according to his own whims, attains neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. So the whole idea is to accept those scriptural injunctions. You know, and that's what happens if your intelligence has awoken. So this the road might have been written. My intelligence has awoken. Now I'm discarding the demands. I'm saying no to the demands of my lust, anger, and greed. And then he prays to the Lord, please engage me in your service. Engage that same mind, intelligence, and ego, and everything in your service. It's a very nice prayer. But if we ignore the scriptural injunctions, then we're going to be condemned again. No perfection, no happiness, no. So therefore, now here's Tasmat again. You remember we had the first verse we read tonight was the Tasmat verse. Tasmat shastram pamanam te karya karya vivastito gyatva shastra badanoktam karma karta miharasi. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. So this concept of duty is something that you don't spontaneously want to do, but because of a higher authority you accept, you do the duty. You know, and that higher authority is the Shastra. This word pramana is also very important in the verse. It means evidence. What we take as valid rules for what to do and what not to do. If you think about it, our life is simply a series of doing one thing and not another, right? I like to point out, if you just walked like 100 feet further down the road, you could go to the bar, right? And people, they wouldn't be caught dead here in the Hare Krishna temple. You know, they'd rather go to the bar, right? Or it's just like, yeah, this is what's on the way to the bar. But then there's people who come here purposely, and no, we're not interested in the bar. So it's a decision based on knowledge, based on what your set of desires are. Now, at a certain point, you know, you're not attracted at all to go there. That's the whole point. So what is the evidence? This is the evidence. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and the words of the Acharya. That's what you have to accept. Shastra pramanam te. About karya, to determine what to do and what not to do. And knowing those instructions, then know what the Shastra says. This word vidha is like vidhi, means an instruction. Brahma is sometimes named vidhi because he possesses all this Vedic knowledge, which he then passes down to Narada Muni, who passes it on to Vyasadeva, who passes it on to Madhva, down the cyclic succession. So Shastra vidhi is key. And when you accept it as evidence of what to do or not to do, then you're on your way out of the morass of these lusty desires, which if you follow them will lead you to hell. Very dramatic. But so the same point is being made here. Therefore, in the beginning, Arjuna. In other words, what's the beginning of Krishna consciousness? Well, you know, you have to give some time to it, right? You may not at first. You probably aren't following the four regulative principles, although it seems like, in my experience, someone who's a vegetarian is more open to the philosophy. You know, it seems it's more the mode of goodness. But anyway, somehow or other you become interested in Krishna consciousness, and if you persist in that interest, then you get the impetus to do more of the practice. That's bhajana kriya. This is again the latter. I'll just go through it real quick. And then, okay, suppose you get initiated, or even before initiation, you're getting rid of anarthas. You're cleansing away by that bhajan, by the chanting, by associating with those in the mode of goodness, or even pure goodness. And so that bhajana kriya is going on, and you're becoming serious, and then take initiation, and the anartha nivritti goes on. Then you come to the point of nishta. Nishta is real faith. Defined by Lord Chaitanya again, to Sanatana Goswami, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohe Sudridham Destroy, Krishna Bhakti Kole Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. This is a really nice verse. Shraddha means the firm conviction that just by Krishna consciousness, all my aspirations will be fulfilled. Think about it, you know. Because it's not just a hobby, it's not something you do once a week, you know. It says, okay, the more I can do every day, the quicker I'll achieve my real goal in life. And that's actually what Krishna consciousness is. So that's nishta. Now at that point, the ruchi becomes sweeter and sweeter. Ruchi means a taste, right? And there's material ruchi and there's spiritual ruchi. So we're talking about spiritual ruchi. That means taste for the holy name, attraction for it, for seeing the deities, for service, everything related to Krishna. Festivals, it all becomes more attractive to you. Krishna is giving you that attraction from within your heart, you know. And along with that attraction comes vairagya, detachment or distaste for material things, which you may have been completely into before. You said, no, I don't want to hear that kind of music. I don't want to taste that kind of food. I certainly don't want to drink it more, you know, whatever. And even the people who you used to be friends with, oh, sorry, no, I'm not interested, don't call me about the parties anymore, whatever. That's you're becoming Krishna conscious. It's not that you're becoming disinterested in enjoying yourself. Where's the kirtan, where's the feast? How can I serve out the feast? That's where the real nectar is. I used to serve out all the time, Now I don't do it as much. I did the other day. Because you can relish everybody's feast that way. And you take a little prasadam, So. But there's a verse like that. We chant every morning. Those who go to my Chaturvadhashi Bhagavat Prasada Swadvana Triptam Haribhakti Sangan Sangat Tadeva Triptam Bhagavad Vande Garoshi Charanaravinda. Sorry, I know when I sing it, it's easier. So the spiritual master is very satisfied when he sees the devotees being satisfied by taking the 4 different kinds of prasadam. He's not so satisfied. He's satisfied taking the prasadam, but seeing how prasadam is being served out. And Prabhupada showed that so much in the early days. He would cook. Can you imagine those feasts in the early first Sunday feasts? Oh my God, what I wouldn't give to be back there then. That being satisfied, seeing others satisfied by that's real bhakti, by prasadam. And so. And you can see that doesn't depend on your own ability to relish prasadam. That's also there. That's also service. But you can, being able to enjoy everybody's feast like that, you see someone taking prasadam, you see how wonderful it is, that source of pleasure. The source of pleasure, just remembering Krishna, to have a thought that gives you constant, real, transcendental pleasure. You don't have to be young and strong, and you can be 80 years old. That's that's real transcendental pleasure. So what is he saying here? Jnana vijnana papmanam pratihiyenam. In this way, okay. So back to our verse in the 3rd chapter. Therefore, in the beginning, you have to control the senses. Niyam yabadatasha. And this way you can slay the sinful, the sinful, or the gate to sin, right? This is one of the 3 gates is kama. Jnana vijnana, which also destroys knowledge and realized knowledge. Now this I think Prabhupada mentions it in the purport here. But the idea is that your very interest in things transcendental can be squelched and crushed by too much sense gratification. You see, you get the covering power of Maya is so strong. We have experienced it so long we don't recognize it. But she has these 2 powers: this avaranatmana shakti and prakshetatmana shakti. Avaranatmana is the covering potency, thinking you're the body, thinking you're that your real interest lies in sense gratification. That's a great illusion. That's Maya. And she grabs you and she pulls you down into the 3 modes of nature and lifetime after lifetime. So how can we get out of it? We can't get out of it on our own. Daivi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya. It's a very important verse in the 7th chapter, text 14. Krishna is saying, this material energy of mine, composed of the 3 modes of nature, is divine because it's connected to me. Daivi esha gunamahi. Mama maya, my maya, duratyaya, is impossible to cross over on your own. Duratyaya means very, 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 very difficult, But those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Because when you surrender to Krishna, means you're acting on the basis of the instructions of the Shastra and Gita, and not your own mind and senses. Then Krishna, from within, he gives you the detachment. Because Maya's power comes from making you enthralled with her offerings of sense gratification. Even knowing that you're going to suffer, you lose your intelligence. That's what those famous verses. Your intelligence is lost. Remember that? By too much meditation on the project. I'm not going to go through the whole series, but you get attached to it, then you get lust after it, then you get frustrated, then you get angry, you lose your memory, you lose your intelligence, and you fall into the pool. So let's not go down that route. That dhyaya, instead of meditating on the vishayas, the sense objects, you meditate on Krishna. and Krishna then takes from within your heart, he destroys the powerful desires for Maya, for sense gratification, and he replaces it with powerful desire for him, which is completely wholesome. The more that we're addicted, that Prabhupada was in John Lennon's room. You remember John Lennon? Everyone know that name? One of the Beatles. Prabhupada lived in his estate for a while when he went to London. That was the first place he landed there, because they had the relation with George, and they were able to get. So he's staying there, and so one time he went to John's room, and they were asking him some questions, and it was a picture of those two, John Lennon and who is it? No, the lady, his wife. How was it? Yoko Ono. There was a photograph of them in an intoxicated state, on the wall. So Prabhupada had to deal with that. So, so they asked him, well, how can you recognize a real guru? So he said, well, you find that person who is most addicted to Krishna, and you said, that's the genuine guru. Another into addiction, But it's a fact. When you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see, Lord Chaitanya and his associates, they became totally addicted to Krishna, to chanting and especially kirtan, and going on all night. Lord Chaitanya is in ecstasy, everyone's crying and then chanting and chanting. And they didn't stop, they didn't feel tired, and then the sun came up and, okay, it's time Lord Chaitanya to do some morning duties, they had to call it in. But that's a wholesome addiction. That's the more addiction. Oh, I want to chant more rounds. Why just 16? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. It's so sweet. And you can you say, well, okay, for me, I find it enjoyable, but it's not that sweet. Well, then you can read about it and you can pray. You can pray to the holy name. They've given us the name. Here's one verse from the Namashtaka. 8 verses about the holy name by Rupa Goswami. And I think these were also collected. Wasn't written as an ashtaka, but they were just collected from his writings on the holy name, and it came out of it. So here's one verse where you're praying for more and more taste. So now, before I do that, remember that prayer, that song we sometimes sing in the morning. Those who hear Yashomati Nandana Braja Bharana. That's all names of Krishna, and that's why Bhakti Vinod. Now, by the way, you will know, and many others don't know. I'm going to tell you something very secret. On our little sign there, there's a nice devotee who made all these signs. This one and the Guru Vashtaka sign. So the last phrase goes Bhakti Vinod Ashraya. Now most devotees, but it doesn't say that on the sign. He thought it was a misprint in the book. Well, it's not Bhakti Vinod, it's Bhakti Vinod. Right? So he wrote down Bhakti Vinod. Now when I sing it, I sing Bhakti Vinod. But everyone says, oh, I don't know what Dravida is singing. It's Bhakti Vinod. That's what it is on the sign. But no, it's Bhakti Vinod, because it fills out the meter. He sometimes would do that at the end of his songs. There's other songs like that. So that's just if you're ever in the morning and we ever read Kirtan and you see that. But that's neither here nor there. So but that it's a series of names, and then in the middle of it he says, Amayavilasa. These holy names are filled with the Leela of Krishna. You see? In other words, they remind you of different pastimes. Yashomati Nandana. Oh, we just had month of Kartik. He's the beloved son of Yashoda. Braja Badanagara. Vara means the best. He's the best hero in Braja for all the devotees. Yasomati Nandana Braja Badanagara Gokula. I forget the song. The Kana. It ends with the word Kana. What does Kana mean? Darling. It means darling one. That's why it's important to read the word-by-word meanings, which I put in there painstakingly. Those who don't, you forget because you came so recently. But the songbook used to be this size, not 1,000 pages, but just this size. That's how big the song was, because it didn't have any synonyms. It was a lot shorter, and I got a little chastised by Vaisheshika at first when it came out, because it was much bigger. You've seen the songbooks, it's a big book now. They brought them out because he had every Saturday morning he would have all his devotees, and then they would be studying the songs, and it's much more awkward to have these big songbooks. So what did you do? He says, I put in all the word-by-word meanings. He says, oh, okay, thank you. And then he says, that's a good idea. Because if you can't learn any verse or song or anything without the word-by-word meanings, it's just not going to happen. So, but we have them, so take advantage. Look, learn what all the words mean, and then it's much more. When you hear the song, it's all the pastimes come there, in your mind. Okay, each word has a pastime to it. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm getting a little far afield. So the beginning is controlling the senses, and 41. So let's read 42 also, and then tomorrow we'll finish the chapter. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhyak parang manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Purport. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. The outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness, or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act, as it does during dreaming. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If, therefore, the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratification are superior to the senses, and mind is superior to the sense objects. If, therefore, the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained, param drishtra navartate. This is back in the second chapter, and we'll go over it when we finish the purport. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there's no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the object of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger, and even though the senses are very strong, like serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by association with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind. So Prabhupada is actually quoting a verse here in this last paragraph of the purport. This is a verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati, who was the uncle of Raghunath Das Goswami, very exalted Vaishnava. He took sannyas. He wrote a book called the Chaitanya Chandramrita. And in that Chaitanya Chandramrita, there is this verse that is often quoted, which Prabhupada is quoting here. Kaivalyam nadakayate to dashapura akasha pushpayade durdan dendriya kala sarvapatali protkata dangstrayate vishwam purna sukhayate vadimahindra distikitayate yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam gaurame vastuva. So he's going through different categories here. First he says Kaivalya. Kaivalya is impersonal liberation, merging into the Brahman. And this is all, the premise here is that one who has received and been empowered by the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya, because it's all about, this is Chaitanya Chadramrita, all the verses about Lord Chaitanya. So then this is the result. The first thing is that you think that merging into the Absolute is like going to hell. I'd rather go to hell, even though there may be some liberation there. You know? Why? Because there's no bhakti. In the Brahma Jyoti, there's no bhakti. Bhakti requires the Lord, it requires the bhakta, and the interchange of bhakti, you see? There's none of that in the Brahma Jyoti. There's no nirvishesha. That's the nirvishesha that Prabhupada is saving us from when you offer your obeisances. Means no details, no variety, simply the white light. Yes, the advantage is no more birth, no more death. At least for a while, until you get so bored up there that you fall down. That's another verse. But anyway, so that's the first. And all of the heavenly abodes beginning with Indraloka, he mentions 30, there's many. It's just like sky flower. In other words, it doesn't even exist for you. Who cares? The last thing you want to do is go to Indraloka and get diverted into, you know. So that's you're not interested. Then the next line is what Prabhupada quotes. Durdantendriya kala sarva patali prokata dangstrayate. Now this has to deal with the yogis, who are always working on controlling the senses very austerely, you know, forget some powers, you know, some mystic powers. So they're very difficult to control senses, which are like serpents, poisonous serpents, are like serpents with their fangs removed. You still have the senses, but they're not bothering you, pulling you here, pulling you there, because you're using them in Krishna's service. So they become assets. They become part of your devotional paraphernalia. Right? The hand is your friend, the eyes, everything is used. So that's it. Prokata dangstrayate. And all the universe is filled with joy. How is that? Because you see Krishna's Leela going on everywhere. You see that Krishna's hand is in everything. The super soul is there. He's doing everything. So you can see that. So that becomes joyful for you. But like Prahlad, you do feel urgency of trying to give Krishna consciousness to others. This is the devotee's vision. He himself is blissful, but he's worried and he's in anxiety because no one else has gotten Krishna, so let me give it to him. So then he says, and then Kitayati Tridashapura Akasha Pushpayate, I'm sorry, Vishwang Purna Sukayate, Vidimahindra Chitakita, and Brahma and all the other demigods, in terms of our need to worship them, are no more important than insects. We're not going to worship them separately from Krishna, you know. And this is all the result of getting the merciful sidelong glance of Lord Chaitanya. So this is what we should strive for. And how do you get that? Chant Hare Krishna and dance and take part in devotional service, learn, and, you know, wash the pots. You know, get some service and, you know, become a Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada is talking about that here. Okay. So the soul has to be strengthened, and the mind, the senses also. Unless the soul is strengthened by association of Krishna and Krishna consciousness. So we come back to the importance of sadhu sangha for strengthening ours. Like this, you know, we're building up our spiritual muscles here with the Bhagavad Gita, you know, classes. I'm benefiting. We're reading this book again and again, and just trying to give what Prabhupada gave. And you may be benefited by hearing, and you're strengthening your intelligence. Remember that verse. But due to my intelligence, my power, I'm not rejecting those demands of the mind and the senses to leave Krishna. You see, that's the idea of the verse. But that's not enough. Then you have to pray for Krishna's shelter, that He'll protect you. That my dear Lord, please engage me in your service, and make me, strong in devotional service. That's what we're doing when we chant Hare Krishna. Please engage me in your service. So I won't even be tempted ever again to turn away from you and try to enjoy separately. That's the idea. All right, it's a little late. One real quick poem. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids and home. At every moment see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. That's a Sanskrit verse taught to me by Mahavishnu Maharaj the Elder. He was a wonderful devotee. He used to spend a lot of time here. Okay, we better get ready for Kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much. We will convene tomorrow and read the last verse and probably begin chapter 4. Hare Krishna.